We're going to go ahead and get started with the program. I see the meals are going around, so that's good. I'm Gordon Strong, BJCP President and Regional Rep for this region. I'm happy to have the conference back to one of our local states again. So, welcome to Baltimore, huh? Baltimore really is one of my favorite beer destination cities. I've been coming here for years and years. I don't know if anybody's been out to Fells Point yet, but Max's on Broadway does a great festival for years, Belgian Beer Festival, that I come to in the middle of the winter. So, you know, a city like this has got to have something going if it's going to pull you here in February. So it's fun to be back. In the region here, did anybody take the Frederick exam in February in the room? You passed. We got the results in, so if there are people that took the Frederick exam in February who are judging tomorrow, you're allowed to check your BJCP judge. The results are in, they're not mailed yet, but everybody passed. A couple people have enough points to get to be certified, but the scores were quite good, so we'll have some new judges here. This is actually the last time the conference was here was 11 years ago, and we didn't have a judge reception at that time. We started the judge receptions in 2007, and the conference was here in 2005. So part of why we do judge receptions is to provide a better draw for judges to come and then judge in the competition. One of the first conferences I went to, I think, it wasn't the first, but I think in 2000, there was something like 230 people that went to the entire conference. I think we have more people judging and working the competition staff than the entire attendance of that competition just 16 years ago. So that really speaks something to the growth of the hobby and as we are as BJCP judges. So I was going to do this thing where I ask people like, how many people are judging? Why don't you stand up? But I'm not going to ask people to stand up while you're eating. So if you're a judge who's judging tomorrow, please just raise your hand for me. Let me see how many's here. Look around. Come on. Now, of those people with their hands up, how many of you keep your hand up if you're a national or higher judge? Try doing that at any other competition and see what it looks like. That's why you should come judge the second round of the NEC, because you get to see people from all over, and the level of judging is just so superior. So it's fun to see friends that you only get to see once a year or once every few years. So part of the reception is a thank you for the judges, and also get to know people who you might not ordinarily see at your average competition. So I'm not going to yap on any longer. I wanted to just set up the program and let you know how this all got started. All the BJCP events at the conference, we didn't used to do all this stuff. There's so many different BJCP things going on at the average conference now. There's a dedicated role for somebody just to manage all that stuff. And the person that did that this year is Jeff Sanders. He'll come up and he'll actually run the program here because he put it together with his team of volunteers. We didn't want these events to be sort of centrally managed by the BJCP. We wanted them all to have kind of a local flavor, so that if you go to all the conferences, you'd have something a little different year over year. So this year, he's got some pretty interesting speakers, so he'll tell you all about them and the people that help. So I just wanted everybody just to really recognize how much work goes into organizing this, especially now that the conference has grown and we have to work at a convention center. There's a lot more rules, and last minute challenges and dealing with the HA and all that. So there's just a whole lot to it. So if you see Jeff, buy him a beer. Actually, buy him a beer some other time, and he's going to get nothing but free beer this week. Anyway, I just wanted to express my appreciation for Jeff and the job that his team did, and I wanted to thank you all for coming out, and hope you have a great conference.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Baltimore. I'm, as Gordon mentioned, the BJCP events coordinator for this week, Jeff Sanders. I'm from Baltimore, and I'm really happy that you decided to join us here. Welcome. Welcome to Baltimore, welcome to the reception, and welcome to the outstanding series of events we have planned for this week at the conference. I'm really excited about the first ever Homebrew Con being held here in Baltimore and having the opportunity to build upon the history of outstanding events that the BJCP has done in years past under the National Homebrewing Conference. Baltimore is a town that continues to reinvent itself with new slogans what it seems like every decade. It's somewhat fitting that the National Homebrew Conference decided to rename itself to Homebrew Con here in Baltimore. For those of you who don't know, Maryland has a very active body of BJCP judges, competitions across 30 sizable clubs across the state, and with homebrew and commercial competitions across every county. We're bordered by states such as Pennsylvania, Virginia, Delaware, and the District of Columbia, and all of those have incredibly active and diverse homebrewers, clubs, judges, and educational events as well. Maryland's brewing history is a very rich and fabled one. About 267 years ago, John Barnett started the first brewery in Baltimore. He brought his German heritage and old world homebrewing expertise to a small tract of land here in the Chesapeake Bay. During the 18th century, Baltimore really established itself as a brewing town, and during the 19th century, the styles of beers that were produced in Maryland varied greatly, including porters, stouts, wheat beers, strong beer, table beer, ship beer, small beer, spiced beer, among others. Marylanders have always had an appreciation for variety when it comes to different beers. With the outstanding water provided by the Chesapeake Bay, the numerous rivers and tributaries that we have here, reservoirs, lakes, the thirst of Marylanders are seemingly never quenched. Many Maryland breweries have competed against one another at the commercial and the homebrew levels throughout the centuries. But in doing so have also shared a camaraderie and common fellowship and appreciation of their craft. About a century ago, when malt prices went through the roof, many breweries went under, and they had to sell their breweries to monopolistic trusts. But they then used the proceeds of those, the sales of those breweries, to go into business with their other fellow brewers to compete against those monopolies. The Industrial Revolution in Maryland brought incredible improvements in energy efficiency, temperature control, better equipment, better processes, ultimately resulting in beers. A lot of the pioneering techniques you use in your home brews and in commercial brews were actually started here in Maryland. During Prohibition, Baltimore was the city that led the fight against temperance. Beer is in the heart, Beer is in the heart and the soul of Maryland. The Star Spangled Banner was even sewn on the malting floor of a nearby brewery. And that was because they had no other space that they could spread out and sew that flag. Speaking of which, not 30 miles from here is the capital of our great nation. And with such a concentration of power and wealth comes also great minds wanting to solve incredibly complex problems. Many homebrewers and judges work in Homeland Security, the military, the Food and Drug Administration, at the nearby science and technical research agencies like the NASA Applied Physics Lab. Some are PhDs in yeast and microbiology at Johns Hopkins, water scientists who support efforts to keep our vast water supplies clean, and computer security forensic scientists who find more effective ways to secure and share and collaborate over beer. Each one brings his or her extensive knowledge of beer, cider, and meat making across the state. To the south of us, back there, with the beautiful view, exists vast transportation infrastructure and networks to ship beer, cider, and meats from within the state, as well as from Baltimore's deep water ports. These shipping and infrastructure are used across the entire country. Many of the multinational beverage conglomerates that you guys know about use Baltimore's ports as their access points to one of the world's greatest markets. To the east of us, this way, across the bay, is Maryland's Eastern Shore. That's the more agrarian side of Maryland, growing many products that Marylanders use in their home brews and in commercial brews. The Shore has a handful of commercial brewers that, and they're really outstanding, that are doing some exciting experiments in styles and pushing style boundaries as well. They're finding new ways to turn beachgoers off of the pale swill and onto flavorful home and craft brewers. To the north and the west of us, behind me, are Maryland's all-natural organic hop farmers, artisanal malting operations, budding farm breweries, apiaries and mead makers, cider apple growers, and cideries. In 3 short hours, you can travel across lands that have seen centuries of brewing and distilling expertise, meet some good old boys and gals, and taste your way through history. In every direction, you are literally surrounded by communities of beer, cider, and meat makers with some of the finest minds and materials in their recipes. I want to talk about the events this week and planning that went into them, as Gordon mentioned. So in planning this week's events, I wanted to reflect the goals and aims of the BJCP through Baltimore and Maryland's unique lens. Exams, of course, we always hold exams, but we wanted to make sure that we hold both beer exams, the mead tasting exam, and the cider exam at separate times. And that's just because choice and variety are key values that Marylanders have within themselves, but are also being given the freedom not to have to choose one exam over the other. This is the free state, after all. Marylanders are also big proponents of education. After this reception, in the same room, the BJCP Continuing Education Program will be holding an exciting session on proctor training and unveiling a training portal. Shortly following that, local Millstone Cellars will be holding a cider tasting event in this room with samples and tasting notes from their master cider makers. Not only are they great educational opportunities that you should really take advantage of, but you can also earn CEP points for attending them. Tonight the board will be meeting over a meal, and on Friday the board and staff will be meeting over a meal to collaborate, celebrate successes, and plan out the following year's agendas. Working together to make progress is another hallmark principle of Marylanders and the BJCP. Tomorrow, as you guys know, is the National Homebrew Competition, which is the largest homebrew competition in the world. If you've been to DC, you know that nothing done around here is done on a small scale. On Saturday, BJCP CEP Director Bruce Berger and BJCP Representative Brian Joas will be presenting a talk at the conference called How to Train Judges, Brewing and Tasting Gurus at the Same Time. Given their wealth of experience and knowledge, I highly encourage each one of you to attend. And finally, on Saturday, we'll wrap up the week with the BJCP members meeting, which is your chance to really pose questions and make suggestions on your program to the board and the staff themselves. Marylanders are also big proponents of transparency and openness. As such, all of the events this week that I mentioned are being video recorded and some are being photographed. The content from these events will be posted to the BJCP website in the next month, thanks to the Communications Directorate and to our friends at Chop and Brew. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce BJCP Master Level Judge and Coordinator of this reception, Bill Heberly. Bill falls into one of those professions that I mentioned earlier, but I can't tell you which one. Bill's been instrumental in coordinating today's reception, selecting the speakers, planning the menu, making things affordable for you, and ensuring that what you learned today represents the values of the BJCP and Marylanders statewide. He's a great friend, an outstanding judge, and a real asset to the BJCP here in Baltimore and Maryland. So please give him a big Baltimore BJCP welcome.
Hey everybody. Thanks, Jeff. And since we're talking about BJCP events, I just wanted to say again that the amazing amount of planning and everything that went into these events, negotiating this room, which has an amazing view, the food, tables, all this stuff, and Jeff has kind of had a hand in everything that went on, so I do another one.